management. So when I see, all right, this is insane, then I'm going to sell more.
Yeah.
So
It-
that if I, because I know the poker on a final table is very often completely different than it is in the early or mid game, because people play scared, they play overly aggressive. So I want to put myself in an environment. And I think this is also where I've gained a huge edge over the last years on final tables. I was most of the time very comfortable playing, and when I see an edge and someone want to deal, I didn't deal. I for sure also sometimes didn't deal because of my ego, because you played for 10 hours like, I'm gonna run this guy over, I'm just gonna crush him, let's go, and I should have taken a
yeah.
deal, right? Sometimes we make wrong decisions, and that's totally fine, but most of the time I think I was able just to play my game, and the money didn't affect me that much.
For sure. I mean, if you, I mean, I also think about studying in the same way. So like, one of my closest friends in poker, he's like one of the best cash game players in the
Mm,
world. Plays high stakes, like sits against anyone, all that kind of stuff. And he played a lot of scoops with me the first 2 weeks of scoop and in WPT, and he realized that sure he's really good and has a huge edge at the start of the tournament, but the stakes at the start of the tournament are very small. If you
yeah.
play $1,000 tournament and you're 200 big blinds deep, the stakes you're playing is basically like NL 200, right?
Mm,
But he's used to playing like NL, 20,000, NL 40,000, whatever. But when it got to the stage where he was playing NL 40,000 or 20,000, i.e., the final table, i.e., the bubble, i.e., the final two tables, he didn't know what to do. So he realized that sure, the cash game guys are good when you're playing low stakes,
mm,
i.e., the start of the tournament.
yeah.
But when you get to the end of the tournament, that's when the stakes are very high. You're like, if you play a $1,000 tournament, you're not playing a $1,000 tournament all the way throughout. You basically start at like a $50 tournament, and then you go up to like it goes
Mm,
up, up, and up, and then eventually you're playing like a $50,000 tournament or a $100,000 tournament, depending on how many players are playing, etc. But a lot of people don't realize that. A lot of people think it's fine, study PO solver, like look at some sexy river bluffs for like 200 big
mm,
blinds, look at like free betting the flop, or look at like, check raising all in on the river. But when you check raising all in on the river in $1,000 tournament, you're usually doing it when the stakes are like worth $200 or $500 or $600 or whatever, You're not usually doing it when the stakes are like $50,000. However, I'll do studying, which is not so sexy, like running like HRC, like with some blocker effects and like rerunning it and rerunning it and rerunning it. And it's not so sexy to study, but I know that I'm studying for when I'm playing the high stakes that I'm
mm,
going to be playing. Because when you're going all in for a river bluff, you're usually going all in to make like 1% of the pot, right? So let's say you're playing the start of the tournament and you go all in on the river, you're never making, like 100 big blinds by going all in on the river.
mm,
You're making very thin edges by doing these river bluffs or these river calls, etc. And the variance is already very high. However, when I'm studying for if I should call pocket sevens or if I should call pocket jacks, the difference is going to be, $75,000, or
mm,
$100,000 or
yeah.
whatever. Like I've ran some simulations I've actually run like almost every hand from the party 100K, and some of the differences in EV is like $80,000 or
Yeah,
$90,000,
that's
So
insane.
like I'm gonna make these decisions correct, which is $90,000 different. Sure, you may get the river bluff all in on level one, which I won't find, but you're gonna be making, $15 or $20. So like you need to be clever what you're studying. You need to be studying for whatever's gonna make you the biggest money or lose you the biggest
Yeah.
money, not which is the sexiest or which is the most fun, because usually the sexy part of studying is making you like $10, $20, $30. It's
Mm,
very, very little money, and when you take the variance into account, it's not actually worth the variance to make this EV.
yeah.
And a lot of people don't understand this. Probably the best way, if I was trying to suggest a cash game player, or not cash game player, let's say new person into poker, how to study, I would say um, late register every tournament with maximum 30 big blinds. Know how to play 0 to 30 big blinds perfectly. Don't give a fuck about 40 big blinds to 100 big blinds. It doesn't matter. Just get really good at 0 to 30 big blinds. Get really good at bubbles. Get really good at final tables, and focus your whole attention on this. Never open Peel Solver. Never open, any like post flop kind of thing. Just get really, really good pre flop and be the best player in the field at 0 to 30 big blinds. If you master that, which you won't, but if you do master that, sure, then move on to 40 big blinds, 50 big blinds, and think about post flop. But a lot of people just jump into tournaments and they're like, okay, what do I study? Oh, it's
Mm.
peer solver, because they see like Run It Once videos on peer solver. But it's the wrong approach, and almost like the whole tournament pool have the wrong approach about how to do it. You know, everyone registers with 200 big blinds. No one knows how to play 200 big blinds. People register with 100 big blinds, and without giving too much away, when you're playing 100 big blinds in these tournaments, your goal is not to play theoretically correct. It's to wait for the gifts to be given to you. You know, like you're waiting for someone to give you $500. You're not trying to make $20 yourself by doing a river bluff.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense. You're waiting for someone to give you a gift. So
Yeah.
if you're playing a 100 big blinds tournament, if you register with 100 big blinds, no studying should come into consideration. You should just be waiting for the recreational to be giving you the gift,
Yeah.
or the high egotistical regular to be giving you the gift, you know? And then when it gets to 40 big blinds, 30 big blinds, 20 big blinds, that's when your studying should be coming into account. This is how I approach it, at least.
Dude, this is gold. I remember yesterday we had a discussion in our tournament masterclass expert group, and people were basically debating for an hour or 2 hours whether to flat queen jack suited in the early stage. I don't know, was 50 big blinds or 100 big blinds from hijack against UTG. You know, these kind of spots. You can 3-bet, you can call.
Yeah.
And I got so irritated. I got so irritated. I would have liked to punch through the screen and take the guy and like, motherfucker, what are you actually doing here? You have to think about how you spend your time when studying. And if you look at the EV difference of flatting queen jack suited or 3-betting, and you waste 1 hour, you're essentially having a 5-cent hourly by finding out whether it's a 3-bet or it's a call. And I always say, just look at the players behind. If you have 5 racks behind 3-bet, if you have at least one big fish, call. Period. This is going to bring you the most money. And as I said, and I also recently made a YouTube video on how to study, and I basically also encourage people pre-flop ranges. And I should have taken it further. I think your advice is even better to focus on 20 big blinds, 30 big blinds, ICM. I also encourage people study, run those ICM sims, become very good with short stack. That's where the money is at stake. Learn outs, pot odds, and we have an overview. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, just go one of the recent videos, how to study. We have a wallpaper that I'm sharing with our community where you see you get someone bets half pot, you see the outs you get, the equities, training basic equities. You know, the way I study post-flop situations, and these days I usually don't look at Pio. I take power equilab, I put my opponent on a range, what he could be bluffing on the river, his value bets, my hand, and I see if I get the equity. If it's too thin, I fold. And then I can still look it up in Pio and see, all right, toy around. What are the GTO ranges? What is my opponent supposed to do in that spot? And I see if that makes sense. Can I do some exploits? But it's never, ever opening a software and seeing the result and trying to apply it. I think this can really fuck up your game. And
I mean, there's also one thing that people don't really understand is that if you, let's say you play the big 55 and you double up the first hand, your stack is not worth $110. You know, it's worth significantly less.
probably
But if you,
not even $60.
well, yeah, let's just say let's say it's $75,
Yeah,
which is
it's-
higher than it is. If you do Peer
Depends on the
Solver,
size of the field, of course, right?
if you do Peer Solver and you win one, and let's say you win 100 chips, you win 100 chips, right?
Yeah.
But if your stack is not doubling up in value, then all you're winning is chips. The dollar EV is a lot less. So like if you win 10 chips, you don't win 10 chips. You win like 3 chips or whatever it may be. You know what I mean? So like you're winning significantly less chips than it actually says you're winning, because you don't just cash in chips. You know, you don't just get like these chips from PokerStars and pay your rent with chips. You pay your rent with dollar, right? So the only thing which matters is dollars. So like if Peer Solver says you win 10 chips by winning a pot, you don't win 10 chips. You win whatever the ratio is of that your stack increases in dollar EV. So if your stack, let's say you make a river call for your whole stack, and your stack goes from $55 in EV or $50 because of rake to $65, you haven't won your full stack doubled up. You know, you've won 20% of your stack, and people don't really understand this. But in Peer Solver, if you look at the river, for you calling off on the river for your whole stack, you're not winning all of those chips. You're winning like 20% of whatever Peer Solver says. And now if you look at every Peer Solver simulation and you win 20% of the pot instead of 100% of the pot, you will always fold in Peer Solver, you know? So like it's almost like it's almost you can never call all in on the river in a tournament early on because the difference of without the nuts essentially, because if you double up, you don't double up, you get 20% of your stack. And if Peel Solver says, okay, instead of doubling up here, you're going to win 20% of your stack, it would never call any river without the
Yeah.
nuts, you know? And you have all these people saying, oh, but he could have this blocker, or I have this blocker, or this, but
I
it
could
doesn't
get
matter.
exploited.
You're not taking into account the dollar. You know, like,
Yeah.
everything is just about dollar. Don't worry. If you want to play chips, play cash games. You know,
Yeah.
it's different. It's a completely different game. And yeah, this is why whenever I see training sites or whatever, like talking deeply about PO, I'm just like, it makes no sense to do this. Like you're barking up the wrong tree, I think. But everyone, the whole industry is doing it. So like
Yeah.
maybe I'm wrong and everyone else is right. But you know, I back myself right now and until it goes very bad. But I think I just feel like everyone is doing it wrong. But I don't know,
He
could be
also
wrong.
doesn't consider future game, right? And the softer the fields you are in, it does not factor in that you're gonna have 50 hands after that coming. So why risking your tournament life for $100 pot, 100 big blind pot where you gain on average 2 big blinds, where you very likely you're gonna get spots where you're gonna gain more big blinds. So you're
Yeah,
essentially denying yourself higher profitable spots. It's like, I don't know, investing in stocks with a very marginal ROI, but you invest all your money into that. But by waiting longer,